I can see comments over here. It's gonna take a bit. Let me double
Okay.
check. In fact, I'll tag you. How about that?
Cool. Thank you.
I will tag you as soon as it hits. There it goes. Well, it says I'm live. I don't see us. There it is. Okay. All right. Let me edit Mary Costello. Yeah, I don't know. I know we talked before, but or I've seen you
Um.
out. I've seen you out there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I've seen you too. I guess we just. I guess I just commented probably a few times. I don't know if we've messaged before.
Uh, I don't know. Maybe you and Morgan did. That's what she said.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know if you're one of those that didn't want to come on.
No, I'm always ready to talk. I always have something to say.
Well, you said you were on a show yesterday, or you were on this
Well,
platform yesterday.
well, I just used this, but it was someone else's show. I just popped in to talk for like 2 minutes, but it worked
Oh,
fine. So
okay, I got you. Yeah.
yeah,
All right, so let's get back on this horse. It's
yeah.
Monday, March the 11th, 1221, Houston, Texas. Mary's in UK.
No,
Let's see.
Ireland. I have
Oh,
to.
oh,
Yeah, I have to correct you there.
I should. I love the Irish and the Scottish, and I love that whole thing. I'm very
Good.
anti-establishment, so no, no harm meant.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. So many people we become familiar with their energy, we don't even know them.
Mm,
Because I mean, it's just been that way over the years. But I know you've been out there a while. So
yeah.
first of all, welcome to Soul Speaks 5D. Thank you for coming in and honoring us with your presence and sharing space with us.
Thank
Um,
you.
how did you get started with this? I used to ask the question, have you always been this weird or did you have a wake up experience?
Yeah, I've always been weird. I have.
Hmm.
No, I what happened was I have always had a particular code or whatever. I just and most of my life I just spent it in a lot of quietness and outside of outside of things. And it's just in the last couple of years I received a healing from a friend, Huna Flash, and he does this quite a strong healing and kind of and through the last couple of years, last year, a very big moment where my mother passed and she was living with me for some time beforehand. And somehow that passage brought this channel to me or allowed me to access this channel that I was
Okay.
always
So,
meant to channel, let's say.
all right. So let me get this right. So I know Huna. Okay. So
Yeah,
what was it? A couple years ago? A couple, 2, 3 years ago?
2 or 3 years ago, yeah.
Okay. So up to that point, were you already kind of embedded into these communities and kind of tuned in to this stuff?
Um,
Or,
I was more tuned in with nature, let's say more of a daydreamer. Um, Definitely tuned in, but not following any information because I don't really read a lot or look at a lot of different things.
right.
More so in my own kind of
Right.
inner understanding.
So how did you intersect with Huna?
Um, my daughter's birthday is the 1st of April, and she was born at home. And in the preparation for that, it was my first um true embodied experience of the the idea of the cosmic womb presence, the channel of the cosmic womb. So that was that. And then Huna was doing some ceremony for the 1st of April. So that's just this is like well after my daughter's birth, but it just piqued my interest, because he said the 1st of April was an important date. So I just tuned into that and I just the vibration of his voice just resonated with me. So that was that. I went for his seal, and that
And
kind of I
is
think
that
it just shakes things up. It just releases.
right?
It takes time to embody, you know. But
Well, there's so many different. triggers and activations, I guess they're all the same thing at this point. Some make you feel
Yeah.
good and some feel great, but or don't feel so good.
Yeah.
So basically, as a result of that, or at least in part,
Mm. Yeah.
that opened you up, and now you're talking about a channel, a specific channel that you started to channel. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this really, really happened when my mother was with me, and it was my first moment. The Queen of Heaven, she called herself, arrived into my bedroom, and she
Now,
just
this
said to me,
was this the first what we might call psychic or paranormal experience with the apparition that you'd had, or had you had one before?
um, I think really everything amped up around my mother's healing. So this is my first time meeting the Queen of Heaven, and
Okay,
having her frequency embody, and with my mother's healing also, um, it was my first time understanding the functionality of what we would call like the Mary Magdalene presence, but what that looks like as healing. Because I'd been
right.
taught Reiki, so I'd done Reiki, and I'd been taught that. So I'd been taught very linear type of healing and presence, and it didn't really work for me because I used to get headaches. And then when I was healing my mother, somehow because I was so desperate and had so much emotion involved, it's like it just started channeling through my heart and my womb instead. So I got the essence of what Mary Magdalene was meant to be about, let's say. She's
No,
just an example, right? But the wording is like the feminine light or the light of woman.
right, right.
So yeah, it kind of amped up around my mother. So yeah, things became more seen and more like the barrier or the veil was gone. My house was surrounded by angels. It was just a very intensive, like there was intent behind it from higher than myself, you know. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, is that you? It's your team, your monad, your whatever. But so, but it sounds like that what you're tapped into or what you are
Mm,
is, like pick any of these, or is it all the same? Like
mm,
the divine feminine, the mother goddess, Mother Mary, Magdalene,
mm,
the Queen of Heaven. Is it all
mm.
kind of the same energy for you?
Yeah, it's like that's our interpretations of it or our attempts for words. And as a child, my only access to it was a picture of Mother Mary. So
Mm,
that would have been my connection then. So
mm,
it's changed, and now it's gotten to the point where what I would say is that I channel golden frequency, like the frequency of the first sound of Mother, and that
okay.
comes from the heart of Andromeda. So, and I have a ring. This is the color of the heart of Andromeda, the crystal core of Andromeda.
A light
It's like a
bluish, kind
blue.
of
Yeah.
bluish white. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
So,
I had that
yeah,
color in my head, but this is how this thing's going now, right? And
beautiful.
then the other thing I think of too is because I've always said since I was a little kid, I was raised Catholic, and
Yeah.
I guess the first icon or energy or consciousness that really spoke to me was Mother Mary. Um, and so I've had a lot of experiences with that energy and other divine feminine energy over the years.
Mm,
Um, but the other thing I find interesting too is I don't have like full recollection, like some people have full recollection, like each stop that they made in the multiverse. I'm just kidding, but you get little fragments here and there over the years, and
mm,
I always have understood that coming into this playground or this whatever you want to call it, this series of incarnations, I came through Andromeda originally. And so when you speak of the mother's heart
yeah.
from and originating from Andromeda, that
Mm,
seems like it carries a lot of lineage from that point to this point. Do you
yeah.
have like any inclination or any knowledge whatsoever about your connection to it and maybe what that lineage is?
Um, no. So all I have, all I have is what I can feel, and remember in the moment through the embodiment. The process for me, I was almost like outside of time for most of my life. And then it's only when my embodiment began, truly like the fullness of my soul could actually be here, um, that I started, and it's clarifying further, that I could actually remember, because everything was stored in my body. And I only really trust what I feel in my body. I don't reach too far outside of it. But what I would say is that I was just told to put my mother in the golden line, and I didn't know what that meant, but somehow that this would allow like a lineage, and it was showed to me for my family, but then for everyone, to have the line of mothers and grandmothers in this, bring them into the highest line, into this golden line, and that is the lineage. So that, I guess, that would be, it is what I'm doing is specific to me, but there is other women channeling something similar.
Yeah.
But every one of us is to have our lineage in a golden line. We can
Yeah.
do that. We can bring them all into that.
Yeah. And there's men out there that are communicating with these too, because I've you mentioned the grandmothers, and
Good.
that's been a big part for me since the beginning, actually, since before I officially reawoke. That's where I started. I would pray in this closet. I'm a grown man, like 47, 48,
Yeah.
49, and I had a house full of kids, and we had one of well, my I'll just say it plain. My wife at the time, she was a seer, and she had a lot of challenges, like some do, with what
Mhm.
they label as mental affliction and that type of thing. So there was a lot of stuff going on. Plus, we lived next to a cemetery. Plus, it was like the period that was leading up to Soulology, or
Yeah.
my reawakening. But God, I forgot why I was bringing that up. Oh, the grandmothers. Yeah. So I would
Mm.
get, working and trying to do all the things I had to do at the house, and not really having, like losing your mind, basically. So I would go into this closet in my bedroom, and I made like a little altar, and I just started, connecting with them every time I'd start to get stressed out. So the mother energy, I remember talking to Sandra Walter last year, last time we got together on the show. And I was telling her that the mother had called me. We were talking about just different things. She was talking about being on the mountain and communicating with different types of consciousnesses and energies and entities. And I mentioned that the mother told me I had to go to Sedona. And she said, when the mother speaks, you listen. And that's always what I felt like with the grandmother energy and the
Mm.
goddess, or the divine feminine energy.
That's
Um,
funny. My mother did a small bit of traveling, and one of her favorite place was Sedona and Santa Fe.
mm,
Um, and it was funny how she traveled to such exotic places for someone, from Ireland, who a mother of 6 children, who just, she decided she wanted to go to Sedona and Santa Fe.
wow.
And when I was doing the first healing I did with her, that was really the biggest explosion of everything. It was like all these red roses were restoring in her body. It was like we were in Sedona, and Archangel Michael was behind her, and he was whipping up the ground. This red dust was rising all around her. And my mother actually chose to be buried in a Native American outfits that she bought in Sedona. So it's like,
That's these things, and these I call them physical synchronicities, but like
yeah,
as time has gone on, they're happening more and more, and we're
yeah,
making the connection more and more. So there's no
yeah,
doubt your mother had
yeah,
some kind of you know
yeah,
connection or origination or link of some
yeah.
substance to Sedona and Santa Fe, no doubt.
Mm.
And the
And
red dirt, yeah.
the red dirt. The grandmothers are really quite insistent about what's happening at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if like my grandmother was talking to your grandmother and they were, coming up with plans, because it does feel like there's insistence and there's direction, above ourselves, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. And
Mm.
since November, I mean, they were there with me. God, I can't even remember because they've been there all the time, right? But they would leave
Yeah.
for a long time and whatever. But I think it was last. I know it was last January. So January 23, right?
Yeah.
I came back to Houston after the Soulology Fest in Arkansas and all the stuff that happened with that, which was quite exciting. But I came back to Houston, which is where I started. And I was walking in the neighborhood of my grandmother. I was living in my daughter's, I sublet my daughter's apartment. One block over, two houses was my grandmother's house in this old original suburb next to downtown Houston. And I started to walk the streets like I did when I was homeless. Same streets too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But right away they came in. 13 grandmothers. They
Wow.
came in and spent, I would say, all the way to October. In October, I moved back here, moved my mother back in her house, got her out of the old folks' home. And in November, Morgan and I reconnected. And from like the first day, um, and I'd never mentioned them to her, right? And we'd been separated for 11 and a half weeks. Went through this, necessary separation. So we sit down to do a session like this. We reconnect. Let's tap in. Let's see what we can get. And immediately she says, I don't know who this is. And I said, it's the 13 grandmothers. And she says, oh my God, yes, you're right. And they stayed with us. They stayed with us probably for a solid 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
their energy is, I think something that there's a reason that it's becoming more and more and more prominent now.
Yeah.
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 Do you have an idea of like, what your direction is or your involvement or you might say purpose, like
Yeah.
with that energy? Is it to heal people
Yeah.
directly or I have a feeling you're supposed to spread, the
Well,
energy. It means
yeah,
like,
things got very clear about 3 weeks ago. I just, made a decision to just clarify as much as I could, above all else. Just clarify my channel for this instruction. And like it was my friend Angela channeled a message from my grandmother actually and sang it to me. And we were both in floods of tears. It was such a tender message of recognition. And I feel like I just needed that little bit of recognition, and a little bit of softness. And once I received that, it kind of gave me strength to really intensify what I was doing. So I just have gone through a lot of and I was actually, I bought a new bed, and in this new bed, and this is all guided to do this because this is like a ridiculous purple velvet bed. Like I've no need to be getting a velvet bed, but somehow the grandmothers, this was told to me to get this. I'm in this bed, I'm feeling held by all the mothers, all the grandmothers, and I'm receiving this pulsing of Andromedan um, energy through me, this insistent healing. And so that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So since then, it's become even more clear, what I'm doing. Like I can put more words to it. Um, so what I'm doing is I'm channeling this golden frequency from Andromeda, which is the first sound of the womb. So it's the correct sound of the womb. And that matters because we have gone through lifetimes of enslavement of the womb. So we can look at the mess and the consequences and everything that's been created, and we can say it came through us, and it did. But it wasn't of our mind, it was of an imposter mind. So what this golden frequency is, it's the mind of the womb. It's the intelligence. I'm anchoring this into the grid, like others, and this is creating a unified womb mind.
right.
And there's function with this. There's like magnetic function with this because if a woman was in a coma and she was pregnant, her womb would know how to create a baby. So there's inherent in organizing, materializing intelligence in a womb mind. The same intelligence that's in the soil, like how the soil knows how to order things. So it's like that's what it is. It's restoring the mind of the womb, the
Yeah.
intelligence of the womb, and
Yeah.
in that way guaranteeing the safety of everyone, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's deep what you just said. There's a lot to that. There's not
Mhm.
too many people that talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not the greatest with names, but I have spent a lot of time over the last 10 plus years researching, like a lot of people, and particularly platforms like this where people are having discussions and that type of thing. But yeah, I remember last year, uh, in that last year was fire, wasn't it? But I remember last year in the fire that I remember because I was having a lot of individual episodes for the
Mhm.
not that I hadn't had them, but there was a lot of them happening because I was by myself a lot, and they came in and basically explained to me that the way this all started, this leg of it, this what we're transmuting and transforming,
Mhm.
correcting, aligning, whatever, was the original uh, piece was the corruption of the mother. And I understood that to be like, like more of a technical kind of situation, right? Not like corrupting her, like damaging her or tainting her. That's impossible. But in this realm, and what you're saying about this original gold frequency, because the golden white light since I reawoke has appeared so many times to me. Like
Mhm.
the first time I saw it was in this little room over here when I came off the street, and the laptop was in there, and I heard you're going to do this on like online, and the whole
Yeah.
thing went golden white. But that seems to represent um, that what you're talking about. Then also
Mhm.
the golden particles of creation. I know a lot of people talk about that. So I think it's the same thing, but it makes a lot of sense that, and even with this thing about if a woman's in a coma, because really, if the first original sound slash resonance slash illuminate, whatever that is, that whole sacred, everything that comes out is in alignment and pure and
Mhm.
untainted, well, then the rest flows from there. And so,
Everything's held
mm,
that way.
yeah,
And it's so beautiful because we have had so many ways of holding that have caused pain and bondage. And that's been our attempts, to hold ourselves together almost and get through the really horrible times that we've all lived through. Um, and what this is, it's a holding only through sound. So it's resonance and it's the golden because we have our soul is golden, right? That's the golden. Um, that's like literally the only concern of this frequency is the golden soul. So the only thing that's going to be held is that.
right,
And it's held in resonance. It's not held in bondage or shadow or
right. No
anything
more.
or
There's no. You mean there's no more? If you love me, you got to suffer.
no. Hopefully not.
No, but let me ask you something. This
Yeah.
I'm loving this, and I had to like measure everything by the shows, right? Like I took a hiatus. I think everybody knows, um, and we're coming back now. But it's
Yeah.
so different. Like it's
Mm.
so different. The conversations I've had.
Yeah.
There's always been a level of multidimensionality in the shows, depending on the dynamics between the two. But now there seems to be a much more amplified telepathy and connectivity to the storylines and to what's going on and everything. So yeah, what you're saying really resonates with me,
Mm.
and I feel like that. That's coming out not just in the women, right? Like we've seen the women out there all these years, but you really the last year or so, especially this year, they're starting to come out like ones that have never come out before,
Yeah.
come out and be seen. But I'm also feeling it in my
Good.
male form.
Wonderful.
And I've had some really nice experiences over the last week or so, which has made it really personalized. You know how everything, not everything, but you know how you'll have like an encounter with something, like say Archangel Michael. That was one of the first for me. And then at some point you're embodied, right?
Mm,
Like you literally don't look out there. You're like, hey, can you come up and see me?
yes.
Instead of where are you? But that's what it feels like to me. It feels like,
Mm,
and I can only speak for myself, but I do think it's significant because I am in a male form,
mhm.
and I've had you know a pretty masculine persona or energy.
Yeah.
It feels like that's what's occurring, and if it's happening with me, it's got to be happening with everybody, right?
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like we're connected in this grid one way or the other. Regardless, we're all connected. So anything, yeah, you can be sure anything you're feeling is evidence that it's spreading, and that's so exciting. Mm.
Yeah. And the thing I love about it is that it's how do you say this? You have to look for it to see it,
Mm,
but if you look for it, you'll see it
yeah.
because it's right there. In other words, like everything that we have equated with production or creation, even if you want to use that term, manifestation, building, in this realm, we have associated with the standard, patriarchal, uh,
Mm,
bricks and mortar, and that, you
mhm,
know what I mean?
mhm.
And all the facets of it. I don't just mean the physical construction of it. I mean the way it's done, how it's organized, and then you have this almost invisible,
Mhm,
you know, energetic force that's seeping all around the globe, or actually coming up, even from the womb of the earth, kind of thing,
mhm.
and it's just real silent, and people have been tuned into it,
Yeah.
and it's gaining a lot of momentum, and it doesn't
Mhm,
it doesn't have the kind of typical influence on what's existing. What I mean by that is
mhm,
in the old way, like say for instance, there's a certain presence and something comes in the door and kind of slaps it, like
mhm,
wake up or something, and then there's this whole back and forth.
mhm.
It's more like it just comes out and it's just there. And it
Yeah.
affects the way you feel and the way you think and the way you see yourself. And everybody is you know, everybody's under the influence of it in a very positive way, I think.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's like rendering the false system, obsolete and unnecessary because it's coming without because it's coming from the ground, it's coming from the roots up, from the earth, and everything comes from the soil. My mother used to say, like, where there's muck, there's luck. Like everything, the gold is in the soil. So our wealth, our replenishment, our sustenance comes from the soil, and our belonging and our connectivity. So it's almost like creeping up on you, and it's like it just comes as memory and reminders. So yeah, it's beautiful not to have any, dogmatic prescription over it,
Right, right,
because we've had so much of that, and even though the word patriarchy, and I know that's the word that gets used, it's like really what it feels like to me. But obviously my primary concern is correcting the mother, as you talk about. What I identified was like a false mother,
yeah,
false magnetic,
yeah,
like held over the water of the earth. So it was never, you know, men dominating women. It was
right,
actually the denial of, or the destruction of mother, the
right,
temporary destruction of mother, and the replacement with this false magnetic
yeah,
and a lot of sound wave interference. Um, Basically, they used our form with a bad mind, with the wrong mind,
right,
and now we have our mind back. So
yeah,
there's honor is guaranteed with that.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and that's another way, another way to visualize if you if it's altered, and interfered with pre birth or pre, whatever that point of it is. I mean, if you look at it, this is really deep. I mean, and there are people that have talked about it. One of them, I
Yeah.
can see his face. I can't remember his name. A lot of people know Michael Saracen. He talks about the Dark Mother. I'm sure Lisa Renee talks about it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too when you were talking about the thing with your mom and her link to Sedona and me looking at you and going, I know you. I know we've had to collaborate together. And I don't normally say that I really, like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking at a true sister. I don't know how to explain it. But in 2022, I went through, was it 2022? Yeah. I went through major initiations in Sedona. And I had just moved out of the house that we had. She'd left a year earlier. So I was a year with her, a year without her. First time I'd been stable in all these years. Move out, plan this festival in Arkansas on a mountain as I was led to. And then I was told by the mother at 3 o'clock in the morning, you need to come to Sedona. So I spent most of the next 6 months there. And but it all seemed to climax in like, say, same time thing. Here we go again. October, October, November, and it was all the mother every day, every night. I mean, I was literally, she was telling me where to sleep. I mean, it was just crazy. But it all kind of came to a head in one night, and she had me walk out into like this big open space. It was in the city of Sedona, but it was empty. It was like a parking lot, well, undeveloped, area, block. And I went out there, and there was a big circle in the middle. And then it was all about the dark feminine and unconditionally loving the dark feminine, the feminine as a whole, but like we do with ourselves. Like, you can't just, we're learning, you can't like put this part of you and that part of you over there and not look at it, right? And that's not me. But it was powerful. It was so powerful. Like, it was like she was like coming at me and screaming and just taking it to the extreme. And I was able to sit there and or stand there and understanding I was loving her unconditionally, and it felt like that. But I really feel like that it's what year and a half later or a year later, whatever it is, and that's something that's embodying, which is kind of strange for me to say that as a physical man, but I really feel like that there's an equality in there somewhere. Like, there's everything's running through both of them. You mentioned the mind is right,
That
a
is
lot.
so
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah. Where it's what it feels like. It's, you see, we're all of the one mind. We're all of mother. We all
yeah,
belong to mother. So there's never there's never such a thing. See, I feel like what's happened with the concept of feminine and masculine, it's been turned into like a concept.
yeah,
But if you just take it back to the most basic of basics, like, in a family, everyone belongs to the mother. Everyone knows that. Everyone, like, the mother is the center. Everyone belongs to her, and she would literally do everything for everyone. So, um, we're all of the mother. We're all being the intention is, like, the divine intention is to bring us all into the memory of that. And
yeah,
you see, there's no competition between man and woman. It's either woman or anti-life. No, it's like it's either mother or anti-life. Like, it's never been man or woman as opposites. That's impossible.
right,
The
right,
like the womb carries evolution. So the womb carries everyone. It carries life. And so everyone's part of that, you
yeah,
know? So that's just another concept that was used to confuse us, that somehow man and woman would be opposite. We're not
yeah.
opposite to each other.
No,
So we don't have to reconcile anything. Um, there's never been any I know that can sound a little bit abstract, because people have been hurt by women, have been hurt by men, and men have been hurt by women. So it's hard to believe that as an abstract truth, but it is. It is the
Yeah.
truth.
I mean, if you look at okay, this is cool. I mean, like Morgan's got these groups going now. One is, I think, called the Yoniverse groups, and now another one. The first two were yesterday. I went to them, and they're have to do with, I don't know what you call them, the Lingam verse or something. I don't know, but it's about the men. It's about this is
Oh, yeah,
about
cool.
this is about sacred sexual power / sexual programming. Ultimately, you know, it's obviously affects all aspects of our life. It's about our life force energy. It's about our golden frequency. That's what it's about, right? But it's segmented into the two for the time being, and maybe at some point they link up. But it's profound that these subjects are coming up, and that the analyzation of the relationship or connection between masculine and feminine is being further understood, like it's coming into a greater level of comprehension, and therefore you're able to see things for what they were and are, right? So as an example, the feminine, and I'm speaking in terms of like my own self, right? Like what's just been very recent, and there's got to be a reason it's coming up, and you're on the show right now.
Yeah.
And it's been like my feminine part of me had to, what do you say, had to submit to my masculine part of me. Now, that doesn't mean my feminine part of me was giving full control. It wasn't like that. It was basically trusting my masculine and giving him the blessing to proceed to create. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm started redoing the atrium here, like it's like a patio, because it's all. I just moved her back in. There's nothing there, so I'm working with the little planter boxes, and I'm sweeping. And while I'm out there, it's like 3 days ago. While I'm out there, literally, I'm hearing your masculine and your feminine are working in unison. My feminine was going, we need to work on the energy of this place. We need to make it look not pretty, but to actually carry energy, sacred geometry, color. And then he's like, I get it. Okay. I got the broom, you know? So that's a kind of a weird little analogy, but I feel like that's happening to people. And I saw it in these men last night, which was really interesting. To have a bunch of men in a group that are she facilitated, and then she left, and then we talked about the experience, and man, it was interesting. All confidential, you know, all in a safe space. But I think this is something that nobody saw coming. We knew the mother goddess had landed. We knew the divine feminine was blossoming and leading the charge all these years. But I think there's a piece of all of us that is the divine masculine that we had no clue what it's been, because it's been suppressed just as she was.
Yeah.
You can't be, you cannot, a woman can tap into her masculine in a very public way, and it's acceptable and it's okay. A man cannot do that with his feminine. So these are just recent things that come to my mind talking to you. Back to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's beautiful. It's like there's really, when you look at it, there's not that many differences between men and women besides the basic, biological functions of reproduction. If you look at the most indigenous kind of communities, people just did what they were made for. So, if you were made for having children, you had children. If you were stronger and you were made like upper arms stronger, you would do physical work. So, but the cultural sharings, or the speaking, the music, there wasn't really a strong division the way there is now of how people even dress, and men always adorn themselves also, in those communities. So that's another nonsense that we've had to live with. And also that, just to say, for as a woman, the kind of what it has been like for me to have a masculine side has been exhausting, because you know it was always for me to have a masculine side to survive something that I didn't want to be in, or to
Right.
negotiate with something that I never believed in. Because, as like you say, your feminine is our feminine is bringing the voice of the formless and saying what we want to happen. So it's very hard, but it was impossible for me, painful, to follow my masculine, if you know what I mean, in life. Because my masculine was so limited. My masculine, I don't
I
mean
know. That's exactly what I'm saying.
my
Yeah.
version of masculine was
Yeah.
so limited.
So
It
it's
was
like,
just, yeah.
yeah. See if it's like this, because yeah, I totally get what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. I
Mm.
think we're saying it a different way. Like,
Yeah.
like the feminine has, we know this, has the vision. She's the
Yeah.
feminine part of us is the one that's tapped in up there, pulls it down.
Yeah.
Here's what I see. Here's
Yeah.
what I see.
Yeah.
But in the distortion where you have the four pieces, you have the divine feminine,
Mm.
divine masculine, human woman, human man.
Mm.
It's like that, and I say that about me too. My feminine had to give something up to my masculine part of me. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about Morgan, I'm talking about me.
Yeah.
And so like
Mm.
it's like uh here's the vision, but that part of me can't tell the other part how to go do it.
Yeah.
You know what you were talking about, with everybody plays to what they're built for, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I meant by the submission. And it works both ways, actually, because
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
side of me had to submit to her as that which you speak of, which I always
Mm.
look at the atom, which is
Yeah.
99.7% empty. That's the mother, right? I mean, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
It's very interesting now, though, that what's coming up, and it's the feeling that men. So it's always been felt that women are to receive men, but the idea that men are to receive women, I just know from my own personal experience, that's not always available to be
Um,
received as I am. There's
right.
often resistance, and it's like, when I look at, when we're talking about the correction, or the restoration, or allowing the masculine presence to be seen for what it is, now that the dissonance and the interference is going, um, that's what I'd like to talk about as well, because
Yeah,
there's,
that's
yeah, that's interesting. That's kind of, that's now. That's really now. I'm feeling that a lot.
yeah. Let me throw this in. This came to
Mm,
me last night in this second session,
mm,
in my own afterthoughts. I think I may have said it, but I don't remember. So it was like the awareness came in, because this is exactly what you're talking about. So it'd be great to hear the other genders, right?
mm,
Uh, I no longer will take anything from, and I will no longer be taken from,
mm,
because I reached that point and it was like, wait a minute, I got
mm,
something to give, and I will give this. It's not about, oh, what can I get? It's like, I will give this to you. But at the same
mm.
time I do that, I can receive you. That's kind of
Yeah,
where I landed, and it sounds similar to what you're talking about. Go ahead.
yeah, because we have been weakened at the root, then and gender confusion was used as a
Yeah.
as a false sound. We have been pulling from each other. So I was always told I had to have a masculine side to be strong. And as I said, that just led me into a lot of stress, into places I didn't belong and I never wanted to be. So so somehow the strengthening at the root is allowing us to just use our full presence, to proceed without the having to pull and push from each other, without having to borrow from each other. Um,
Right.
because we're not,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
all have the full channel, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's what it is. Like people talk about releasing something. I think
Mm,
we might be releasing a blockage, but it stays within us. It's not
yeah.
like, now I know there's implants and stuff like that.
Mm,
Um, Yeah, but this is really, I mean, this is really fertile ground here. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
talked about, your mother talked about the soil thing, right?
yeah,
Soil, soul. But there's
yeah,
something about the matter, uh, you know, merging with the non-physical, I guess, of us, and we're actually in our bodies, and we're comparing notes. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So if I look at what you're saying, which I hadn't thought of, I thought of it this way.
mm,
I realize now some of the problems I had in life because I was around, football and basketball and, guys and bars and fights.
mm,
And, I was called out sometimes for being, I would say, too open hearted or too soft in that type of environment.
yeah,
So that was suppressed. You
mhm,
can't go there. You know what I mean?
mm,
So that means that I was closing my heart,
yeah,
whether I liked it or not. Now,
mm,
listening to you, I'm going, wow, I never thought of that. But you actually took on these properties, as most women can relate to.
mm,
But what it really tapping, you weren't tapping in. I wasn't tapping in. I wasn't doing myself any good. I wasn't tapping into my divine masculine. I was tapping in or relying on my distorted masculine to hide this feminine thing. And you're over
mm.
here tapping into the distorted masculine,
Yeah,
closing your heart. And
yeah,
so it was the same thing. It was just
yeah,
weird right now to see the feminine suppressed in a man who was me,
mm.
and through your story. So I thank you for that.
So yeah, and it's like, so then I can't say that I should correct myself. I didn't put on masculine qualities because I don't, that's not true actually. I put on whatever was perceived by me in my limited perception of what a masculine was through imitation. So that is not divine masculine. Obviously, that's my version of
Yeah.
piecing myself together to survive. So that's an insult actually. So I take that those I just clarify my words with that. But it's and like everyone has a heart, and this is one thing I came up with recently, and it's like, so for the concept, and I know a lot of people say this still, and that the masculine is the mind and the woman is the heart. And I just think it's just that create like mindless women and heartless men. Because how could that be true? Like every man has a heart, every woman has a mind. And my mind is different. Like I speak with a particular way, I formulate thoughts a particular way, I see things a certain way. So if I just try to have the mind of a man, where's that going to bring me? And you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You run it through both. When like many of us, when we have either a major shift or we first reawaken, we're getting like constant channels, and a lot of us are writing or talking or whatever. But I remember in 2012 when I started, when I was guided to open the Soulsy group and start sending my words up with my flip phone. Um, that was a big part of it. That was like the standard mantra was, uh, I am soul is the heart and mind of spirit. So it
Mm,
was, a merging of and so listening to you. And again, I kind of agree with, although, it's so hard to like label things,
mm,
and
yeah.
to avoid differentiation, therefore separation and division. But yeah, I
Same.
would say that goes back to what we were saying earlier, that the heart doesn't lie, right? So
Mm,
if the feminine part of us is the heart, that is the mother, right? That's where the vision comes from. The mind is like that masculine, he's like the builder of in the matter, in a way,
mm,
building in the physical matter.
yeah.
And yeah, and I think that the way you point that out, the way that you say, um, coming from your own perspective, I feel like that this is penetrating everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's being affected by it.
Mm,
I don't know about you, how much time you spend on social media. I don't spend too much these days. But I don't have to because I can pick up a lot of things. You can read energy,
yeah.
right? But just going through the news feed's been very, very interesting these first
Yeah.
couple of months of the year. It's like, whoa, it's very interesting. I don't know. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I notice we're all trying to clarify things. So we have to talk through them, we have to say, I can say something one week and I have a change by the next week, and I
Yeah.
don't mind. That's fine with me. So
Right.
there's a lot of clarification because we're trying to pull apart things to see what's what.
Yeah.
Um, because we still have to talk because we haven't quite got to the place of, we we can drop all conversation. We still have, so we're still clarifying, nothing has been fully agreed upon yet. So, yeah.
You don't have a heavy Irish accent.
No, I don't really.
I mean, I can hear
Don't
it,
worry.
but
Yeah,
I'm used to some of them are like,
very heavy.
heavier,
I know.
like turdy tree.
I do say though, if I had to say 33, you'd hear it. 33.
Melissa
If I say
Dehan, I used to get kicked
water,
out of her. Yeah, Melissa
say the
Dehan.
few words. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and I'll tell you something else that's pretty interesting. I don't know if this would intersect with, but during this time, going back, I'd say the last couple of months, for the first time, not the first time, but for the first time in a long time, and certainly not with any frequency, the
Mm,
what I would call, I don't know why, like the grandfathers come in.
nice. Yeah.
And they come in far less frequently than the grandmothers. And a lot of times this is just tones now, like confirmation. Sometimes they come together and it's really mind blowing because it's a unified beam of unification. But what I get, and then as a man making the transition, or transforming, I think would be better, and being in the body, it's like things come in, I know them, and I don't have to say anything.
Mm,
It's like I don't need to say anything anymore. And I think it's got something to do with allowing the feminine part to speak, right? So
yeah.
as an individual, it doesn't mean I'm going to speak less. I'm just going to speak different. It doesn't make one better than the other because the
Mm,
counsel of the Father is still there.
yeah.
That kingly part of us doesn't have to say much. It's kind of like walk
Mm,
softly and carry a big stick.
yeah. Yeah. And everyone knows, and people can feel that presence, so it doesn't necessarily have to defend anything.
Right.
This is actually something that's come up with some of the women I've been talking with, is like the language of women, and how, and again, I won't say it's the language of men, I will just say the language of what's already formed, the world that we're living in. Because like we're saying, have we truly felt the presence of man?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's where we're getting to. So I won't use the wrong words. I'll say the language of the world that's already formed in comparison with the language of the womb of woman, and how my voice, my presence, I'm speaking, but it took time. It took a lot of time for me to embody and use this voice because I'm constantly like I'm speaking from the womb. I'm speaking from the formless presence. I'm speaking of a memory of the rose realm where my mother is. I'm speaking from constant visions of perfection, and memories of perfection. And when I say perfection, I mean just when like nature is in charge. And our earth has the program for this. Like everything in the soil, everything we have, all our weather, everything is there for abundance and fertility and replenishment
Yeah.
and everything. So that's my voice. So trying to fit that into the formed world, I don't try to fit it in anymore. But I say when you have a voice like that, I feel it's to actually like open sound waves, to literally blast a hole
Yeah.
through whatever's formed
Yeah.
and see what happens. And we have those voices for a reason. And the trepidation, if anyone feels trepidation of speaking, just see it as excitement, don't, and proceed and just see what happens. What's the worst that could happen?
I
Aye.
no, but see, that's another thing I've noticed since after I'm getting restarted. There is a nervousness that I've not had before, particularly with the music thing, and I'm realizing that that's a good thing. And so the other thing I realized too is I've said this so many times, but like I studied all these platforms daily for all these years to pick up on nuances and just to know my craft and just to see what's going on out there, filling my mind with information. And 90% are male host. I'd say 90% of the guests are male. And that baffles me because of the proportion of women feminine to masculine in these communities, such as Sology, which is like 70-30. So I got this thing where I wanted I've come into this awareness that it's what you're talking about. It's not even the words. The words may have, some instructional quality or something or interesting or, whatever. It's actually something coming from what you're talking about, this sound. And it's like people talk about, you can't miss the truth frequency. And that, like tuning forks, that seems to be becoming more and more obvious to me. And then, of course, I think also talking about things that in order to bring them into the awareness of people makes an instant transformation. And I think, at least on my end, that's why I'm going to start a new show. We're going to run twice a week, plus this one. It's going to be a long play with men having these conversations we never had. Not to, you know what I mean? Just so people can hear it. And once they hear it, then it starts to create a better equilibrium within themselves, because obviously the masculine has ears and the feminine has ears within our body, kind of thing. So but I agree with you. The sound thing is even like listening to you, like it's just a lot of times I get off these shows and someone like you and I'm like, what do we talk about? all I remember is the energy was like, okay, this is cool.
That's interesting. When you say that so many more men are speaking than women, and maybe men are more comfortable speaking, or it's more like a second nature to speak, like I say, in the formed world, because you guys are good at learning rules. Like my son was trying to teach me chess. He's only 12, and he was trying to teach me chess, and I don't care for it. I started giving out to him because I said, like, well, why does the king? And I was asking questions about the game. And he said to me, you need to learn. This isn't just a game. This is about life. That's what he said to me. This is strategy for life.
How old is your son? How old is he?
12. He's 12. He was trying to make a man out of me. I just started laughing because then it made me see what goes on in, when a boy or a man is put into a situation, they can figure out the parameters, and the strategy. I could do that at a push, but then I'm exhausted, so I don't. So I'd rather, destroy the chessboard.
To hell with it.
Throw the chessboard upside down.
You're bringing up, but see, you're bringing up a great point, because that feminine part of us feels things. So it's where the masculine, who is the part of us that brings, you could say, the spiritual into physical form, right? That vision into physical form, thinks like an architect, like a designer. That's why little boys play with building blocks. You know what I mean? Little girls play with their imagination, with a little castle over here with some doll. You know what I mean? That's another good analogy right there.
Something that came up for me, and I've seen this through a man's heart. Actually, it was the architecture of the heart and what that would look like. And it was beautiful. It would look kind of like, what I call it is like concentric unfolding. The picture I got was actually of the Taj Mahal, which was
Okay.
actually made with the intention of love. But so that when we talk about the architecture and what's next and what needs to be built or what will be built and configured, what comes to me is the architecture of the heart and how that will look. And that is to be trusted. And this is why, you know, for me, I would say, like, there's a heart of man, there's a heart of woman. It's not,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
child.
and I would love to see that explore. Like, it will be beautiful when we all explore everything we have, truly
Yeah.
what we have, you know.
Here you go. Flicks love between what does it say? Between the rock and the river. I like that. Because that's what happens. She's like the flow. The
Yeah,
feeling is the flow. The feeling is
yeah,
when you have the feminine presence in the moment or whatever, whether it's myself or Morgan's here or whatever collaborators, and somebody says that just doesn't feel right. You're like,
yeah.
but now here's the other thing. So this is another thing, right? And you were talking about this earlier. It's it's as if we had or obtained later, if we had a reawakening or however you want to put it, um, a certain rationale, a certain understanding, a certain congruence with what we knew and how things operated. And then we come down here and it's this crazy, upside down fishbowl of a realm in the corner of the universe in the darkest little crevice that operates a whole different way. Uh, and it's irrational,
Yeah.
you know? It's
Mhm.
irrational. So we've all had that story of, oh, I tried to fit in and, we all got our,
Mhm.
teeth knocked out and all that. But I feel like that's coming back, like how we make things. Uh,
Yes.
and there is this collaboration um, aspect to it. Like it takes
Mhm.
two or more, but at the same time, the individual, it's truly driven by the individual's intention and accountability uh, and awareness of self. Like you know what I mean? Taking the not waiting for others to bring something to them, but again, that here's what I have to give. I have something to give, and at the same time, you're able to receive in equanimity.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I think there's some masculine and feminine involved there. That sounds like a
Yeah.
foreplay.
The voice, the voice that keeps saying this isn't enough, this doesn't feel right. When that can be fully developed into, you know, like, well, answer yourself then, and it's like, well, what do you want? So, if you know, how do I explain that? When that voice comes to its fullness and its wholeness, and it becomes a bit more directional, um, so that's what I would say. The voice of the womb needs to be more directional and insistent, and to say, this is not to like direct, but to be like, this is the feeling we need. This is what it needs
Yeah,
to look like. This is what it
yeah.
needs to feel like. And then people can, all of you chess players can figure out the strategy of it, what I mean? And figure out how that looks like in form. So there's insistence needed from women, or whoever has that voice of the formless, that safety has been denied to
Yeah,
women.
yeah,
And I'm not, that's true, as I deal with lots of different lovely women and I hear their stories. So that's one of the things that was like dear to me when I'm in my, when I'm grounding this frequency, is to know that the mother frequency is what attempts to, or really insists upon, guaranteeing safety.
yeah.
But we just have to trust that that's the frequency of the womb now, and speak. Yeah.
You said a lot there too.
Mm,
Okay. And I just want to say too, the world is changing. I was a
mm,
like at 13, 14, 15, city champion chess player. And I played my daughter who's 21. And I'm thinking, I know chess. And, like she'd been playing a few months and she beat
Yeah.
me. She beat me like 3 out of 5
Oh, really?
games. Oh, yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, there's no way. Going back to what you're saying.
That's funny.
So being with Morgan for 8.5 years and being on the front line of the, what, I don't know what you would call it, but like connected to the collective masculine and feminine through our relationship and through our interactions. Very,
Yeah.
uh, I, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that men inform and women inform, and it's not all perfect science. I get that, are coming from two different places, but having the same experience.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said that kind of struck a chord with me, with what I've been observing in myself and observing and this is very recent. Like for me, maybe a year, but I'd say the last couple of months, and certainly this last week, which has been really cool. With men, is they weren't safe either.
Yes.
So imagine, as an analogy, the
Mm-hmm.
the the blessing or the burden or the part that the male informed that most chose to play. Okay, because it's hard to really, we were the soldier.
Yep.
We were the one that said, we're told, we'll protect you, but you have got to go show your love through suffering and go to war. And now you get out into this, and all you got to do is do a little research. And I've never been in that kind of situation. I know people that have. Um, you get out there, and it's there are no rules. There's no God. There's nothing. There's just, and
Yeah.
again, if you come into a situation and you're rational with your understanding of life, and oh my God, I'm here to defend my wife and my kids and my country and my religion, and you get out there and it's all a bunch of BS. And
Mm-hmm.
there's ethnic cleansing, which is raping, and there's murdering, all that horrific atrocity, right? Uh, you realize you're just a number. And how can you be safe when you're not cared about? This is in the corporate world. I experienced that. I mean, and so I feel that that's where what we're going to start to see here, and I hope to be part of it. And that's what I was referring to about these platforms. I don't, I don't know. I would imagine they are more comfortable because they've been put there. They're the soldier.
Yeah.
They're the one that had the voice. They're the one that was you know what I mean? They held the positions. I haven't seen a female pope, and I haven't seen a female Dalai Lama. So I hold them in the same place. Everything's new. But anyway, my point is that, yeah, that this is as part of the story that none of us knew because he didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Okay, seriously, he didn't. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize it. Um, and I've come to a lot of personal understandings here in the last month or two, and some I've shared with Morgan. Most of them, probably all of them. I don't even think I'm ready to share them. They're so like tender, and I realize this isn't the normal thing. You mentioned about women's language, right? A
Yeah.
while ago. Well, think
Yeah.
about that. Think about that. I've witnessed so many different groups, and they're mostly. I went to one, I think Sunday, and there was 30 women and just me, right?
Mm.
And I almost felt like I needed to leave. It was so reverent and so fascinating to see the way they communicate and support. Well, you don't get that with the other side.
Yeah.
Not normal. It's not typical.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I was experiencing yesterday in these two groups. But yeah, so that's a whole different thing there, to me. And I think when just as the collective feminine inform uh, made their mark expanding, so to speak, it affected the other half. And I think the same thing is going to happen as they start to go, oh, whoa, there he is. You know, one of the
I've
guys,
just,
one of the
sorry.
guys said something. It wasn't even in the group. A guy I was talking to said, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to tell you this. I think you'll find it interesting. As he was contemplating everything, he said something like, I'm so ashamed that I couldn't protect.
Mm.
Man, that rocked me. I was like, oh wow. What he was saying was that everywhere a man goes to provide for the kids, to be a husband, this, that, you're always, it's never enough.
Mhm.
And that's what he felt like. And I think a lot of men deep down, if they really wanted to get real, that's how they would feel.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you said that, you know, men weren't safe and boys weren't safe either. And that's so true. I have my own personal people, men that look just like you, actually, my close family. Um,
Seriously,
you look, you
I
look
was
like you, my brother.
I was thinking that a minute ago. Look how dark her eyes are, and my eyes are dark, and
Your brother and sister.
it's
But
crazy.
you know, so what, like, I would love to talk about what the restoration of man looks like now that we have mother back, what that feels like, and what
Go
I'm
for it.
seeing, like what I saw when I went on quite a campaign this last year to get this the one mother's light back on, you know, on the in felt like really holding us. And obviously within that, you know, you get to see things, you get to see a picture. And I got to kind of poke around and see what I perceived as what had been done to the light of man, in the absence of the light of mother, in the light of woman. So the light of father, you could say, in light of mother.
Right.
So, you know, so you would have been sold a picture. I'm not saying you, but it was sold this feeling of a salvation, like that your light was a salvation, but it always came with self-sacrifice every single time. And when the feminine had no access to her channel of light, one of the greatest parasites to the masculine light was woman.
Right.
So there was just no chance of trust, because at the
Right.
very root we were against each other. Um, Now the woman has her light all the way down to the depths of the depths of the depths. It's everywhere, right?
The
So this our
womb.
channel
It's
is
the womb.
restored. Yeah, it's amazing. So our channel is restored, so we have our own light channel. And I don't mean like we don't need each other or anything nonsense like that. What I mean is we don't need to pull from each other's root anymore.
No.
All of
No.
that sexual misery programs you talked about,
Right.
they are they're not necessary anymore.
Right.
The woman can access everything in her channel.
Yes. And and you know, I, I there never was a fight.
Mm.
If you really got to the heart of the man, um, the heart of matters,
Mm.
uh, you know, it's in nobody wanted that. It's that this is all as a result of what's occurred. You know, all this. I'm talking about all the angst and the friction and the static and the drama and the traumas and all that. They're done. You know, and especially with these young people. Uh, Talk about the golden frequency. I mean, they're just coming in as the golden frequency. You know, in
Yeah.
form. So that's pretty powerful. Um, but I do feel that there's there is a there's a part of the men in general, because again, this is not 100%, but you do have the divine masculine, divine feminine. You've got the woman in form and the man in form, and everything. To me, those are the four components. What's the one that we haven't seen? What's the one that nobody knows about? We heard for a long time, hey, hurry up, you guys are slow, you know, and it's all your fault, and and then it became more compassionate. No, seriously.
I know.
But
I felt all these things, and that's why I'm laughing.
right, and then the men would, me included, would respond with power and
Yes,
force and heart,
yes.
but yet it's
Mm,
still shadow, just like she's shadow. But here's the thing:
yeah.
this is a different space now. This is a space
Mm,
that, in my mind, is full blown transparency. I had a
mm,
session with Morgan a week ago,
mm,
and in that session, I was told, it was very, very strange because she got a direct, and then I got a direct specific to us, right?
mm,
And in mine, it said, "This is what you've got." And I think I'll say it. Okay. You have your mother,
mm,
and I don't know if you know, but my mother and I didn't speak for 6 years. And then I
mm,
called her up in May, and the rest is history, right? Like, it's been a total unconditional love and it's no BS. It's a straight up.
mm,
And then you have your daughter. I've got
mm,
four. So I look at the daughter as the individual they cited, but also as the daughter energy. And then you have your partner, your wife, your consort. And so it had to do with that feminine triad. It had to do with putting that, and this is why you came, kind of thing. Now, going back to what you said, and it freaked me out. I was like, well, okay, well, I guess that's it. I'm going to be heading out. I'm ready for that. I guess I won't get to reunite with Morgan. But the next part spoke to what you were talking about.
mm,
And I don't know how you said it, but basically what it said was, from here forward, every single thing that you do, moment by moment, situation by situation, interaction by interaction, you hold the power to how do you say this? To act, to think, speak, and act in accordance with the truth that is the
mm.
mother.
Yeah,
No matter what, kind of like that thing about being integrity, even when nobody's looking.
yeah,
And sure enough, right away, I'm having these opportunities. They're just little bitty
mm,
things,
yeah,
you know, like little bitty things that I'm having to say, you know what, this is going to cost me money I can't afford. Apparently, I can, but I've got to make this right choice, and I got to walk past this, or I've got to do this, or I got to do that. Uh,
mm,
and and I got to tell you, I feel very ready for it. I don't mean that as an individual. I mean
mm,
that as one individual, maybe, hopefully, I feel tapping into our
mm,
collective masculine that's ready to make, kind of like turn away from the patriarch
mm,
programming,
yeah,
stop serving that
mm,
irrationality, and serve the mother in full faith, which makes no sense in this world because you'll get killed. I'm like, okay, no problem. I'm not going to go fight that force. I'm just going to be the mother's pure compassion, which means there's no judgment. The qualities of
mm.
the mother, right?
That is so beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. And this came up with my daughter said to me, we were talking about place and belonging, and I was confused. I was confused, and she's very clear. And she said to me, "You're the place of my birth. So wherever you go, that's my home, you know?" So she just put me straight very clearly. And our primary belonging is of mother. So everything else, like you said, all the places you were told to have an allegiance under threat of death, like it's not like you chose willingly, like, and I don't mean you, I mean, it's not like people chose willingly to give away their mind, there was so much force involved. Um, what has seemed to have happened with this restoration of the true light of woman is that um, as I said, the grid is being brought into the service of the golden soul, the child only, the innocence of the
Yeah,
boy, the innocence of the girl. Um, so the other stuff, it's not even about moral judgments. It's just obsolete.
yeah,
The other way of being connected is obsolete. And that's the only way it could be done, like you said, of compassion, because we couldn't fight through it, or or resist through it. It had to be almost absorbed. And just to say, for these questions that come up because I do notice people, feeling like the ground's being pulled from beneath them, and if their false allegiance is gone, where do they seek? Where do they ask their questions? And the formless voice has a lot to say. And I would just want to say as well, in regards to women not feeling safe to speak, and this is hopefully can be received without blame. Sometimes like extra space has to be made,
Yeah.
extra allowances needs to be made to accommodate, first of all, the feeling of safety for the woman, and
Right.
then she'll talk all day and all night. But sometimes there has to be a little rose garden placed around her to help, what I mean? To help her feel at home, because yeah.
No, this is something else. Okay,
Mm,
look, people always talk about communication. Communication
yeah.
being a big deal in relationships. I mean, I think
Mm,
it's arguable that one of the characteristics, which is a non-communicative or shutdown, if a relationships, and it's not me. I mean, you could read this is defense. So constantly
yeah.
being in defense. Why are we so? And again, I'm looking at the feminine, going, I'm just now getting this now.
Mm,
I'm just now getting that she doesn't feel safe anywhere, right? So,
mm,
like saying normal human stuff, right? A woman will be like, bringing up concerns, and the man's going, why are you always, worrying about everything, We're going
yeah.
to knock the, you know what I mean? But
Mm,
there's the disconnect. And I'm sure it worked both ways, where
mm,
now, why is it that I understand that that the feminine never doesn't feel safe anywhere, not at church, not at the grocery store, not at work, not at, you know what I mean? Seriously.
mm, yeah.
And okay, so once I started to get that, then I thought, oh, wait a minute, then she doesn't understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So there's this thing, like I said, about this presence that I hadn't really seen since 2012, which I would call the grandfathers, came in. And of course, it followed the timeline of me and Morgan. We came together on the 9th of November, and it just kind of went for 60 days. And there was a lot of grandmother activity. And as you would have in an individual journey, you have these thresholds you cross. And it just came in. It was like, hey, do you see this now? Do you need to explain it? Or do you know it and you carry
Mm,
that presence? And is there more wisdom in just not saying anything? Not from the old Mars Venus. Oh, just
yeah.
keep your mouth shut if you want to be happy. No,
Exactly. Yeah.
just knowing that you are God, you are the King, or that part of you, and this is its function. And
Mm-hmm.
when that part of you speaks and even thinks, because it starts there, right? You start talking a bunch there, then it's going to start coming out. But think, speak, and act. Uh, Less is more, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So
Yeah.
that's a role reversal, I think, in a
Yeah.
way, that, and this goes back to what I was talking about with the platforms.
Mm,
We're gonna give it our best shot. I've gotten so
mm,
many. I got to tell you, I've gotten so many numerical synchronicities doing this show. It's 1:44 here
nice.
now. I'm looking at 11:11. This is
Brilliant.
not even. It's two tabs on my thing right next to each other. A while ago, when you were rocking, it went 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 11 seconds. The moment that you
Yay.
put, but I got so excited about that, I forgot
That's
what I was
lovely.
talking about.
Yeah. There's a feeling of trust coming back, and I certainly feel it between men and women, but inherently in the self. We are
Yeah,
becoming like reconnected at the root, because our root is once our root is restored to as it is, as it was intended. We can connect clearly. You know, we can feel each other, we can see each other and sense each other without all the fears and the apprehensions. And all of the fears were justified on both sides because they were real,
Of
you know?
course, of
So,
course.
but it's just to feel them absolving now is absolutely gorgeous. You know, it's just beautiful to feel them just, they're not even, you know, they're just releasing and we're sensing each other in from this place of like internal strength
Yeah.
and then easily trusting each other
Well,
because
see,
we're all of the one mind. So there's no
yeah.
fly in the ointment.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, and see, okay, this is a great thing here. The
Mm.
trust thing.
Yeah.
Okay. The distrust is what drives this perfect realm that we set up because we did set it up.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So we wouldn't trust one way or the other. A
Mhm.
woman wouldn't trust a man, and a man wouldn't trust a woman. But we're really talking about it could be a man and a man, it could be a woman and a
Mm.
woman, right? It's still the energies. We don't want to. Okay,
Yeah.
and the thing is we're. I'm not going to trust you, therefore I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to bare my soul first, or
Yeah.
whatever the thing is. And you're saying the same thing. So
Mm.
it's like a chicken dance. There's nothing going to happen here. And I and I feel like this is kind of a good way to look at it for
Mm.
me to kind of get it into my understanding. We know that that feminine voice needs to speak.
Mhm.
It just
Yeah.
everything points to that.
Mhm.
And and then the fact that our masculine side comes into this knowing of what
Mm.
true truth is and how things work, the architecture that what I
Mm.
mean, he comes from and
Yeah.
creates, that
Yeah.
he doesn't that part of us doesn't have to speak.
Mhm.
Like I said, less is more, but with, to me, with a caveat, kind of a disclaimer for everyone. Just because you're in a man's body, just because you're in a woman's body, doesn't mean that you have a bead on one or the other. That
Yeah.
is a fine and higher line of differentiation, superiority. Okay. We've
Mm.
got to be very careful because we're getting into the ionosphere here. We're getting into the upper cosmic atmosphere in terms of truth and
Mm.
walking the talk and holding the light and being in that equilibrium in both, as we call it, masculine and feminine. But it's really not even masculine and feminine. It's
Yeah.
masculine, feminine, or mother, father, child.
Yeah.
It's all three,
Yeah.
right? It's all
Yeah.
three.
Mm.
All right, this is cool talking to you. And we had every time we have tech issues, we always have a great show. We
Yeah.
have two shows today. We have Jonas Lindstrom coming on from Sweden in 12 minutes, and I got to take a break.
Okay.
But if you would like to do another show, because you know what? I'm not doing anything like we used to before. I don't even schedule anything. I'm just making it up as I go. I have no idea, out of respect, I'm not going to drop an F bomb. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I do know this Sology Network 1 year anniversary was yesterday. It's game on. We're in contact with all the collaborators that were with us last year. And what I didn't finish my sentence earlier is, we're going to give it our best shot. And my goal is to bring the proper proportion of representation to the mainstream, which means that, on the surface, what would that look like? You got 100 shows and 80 are hosted by women. And
Wow.
the content, of course, follows suit. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, Mary Costello.
Thank
If you haven't gone over to soulgynetwork.com, you don't have to subscribe. You can register. There's a lot of free stuff on there. There'll be a lot more. We got some big announcements this month, but after 12, 13 years of doing this, I'm not going to put my foot in the mouth. I'm going to wait till it's done. But yeah, we got some really powerful announcements to make during this month. And thank you, everybody, for love, support, and contributing to it. And Mary Costello, if you want to do this again later in the week, I'll be happy to. You
Sure.
mentioned a couple of kids. That piqued my interest too, because you're talking about this son and this daughter who are lit. I can tell, and I'm always curious about these 5D homes because they're popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
But th-
Yeah. That'd
but
be
thank you
nice.
so much, and thank you so much for spending time with us. And I look forward to doing this again. Just send me a message, and we'll do it.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Todd.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you in 10 minutes if you wish. How do I get